the app. We want to welcome back Mr. Dave McMenamin to the set to discuss a player he covered 4 years.
There we go.
And a player Richard played with 4 years, Mr. Kyrie Irving. Oh, this is love right there. That's what that is, or something. Kyrie addressed yesterday some of the points that were brought up in Jackie McMillan's ESPN story about him a few days ago, particularly the topic of his, quote, mood swings. Take a listen.
You can continue to ask other people around me about what they think about me and continue to write about mood swings. Like, you know, human beings have mood swings. Like, you go home and you're not happy with things, or you're mad at something and you're happy. That's a mood swing. It's okay to be human. Like, I don't have to be perfect for anyone here, nor do I have to be perfect for the public. So I'm not here to dispel any perception. I'm just here to be myself.
I loved that answer from him. That was great. What did you think?
It did remind me a little bit of the Jim Carrey recent kind of way of thinking, where he said, there is no me, there is no person. There was a detachment from everything else in the world other than what he deems valuable to himself, which is relationships with his family and friends. And if that works for him, that's great. But he is also representative of the NBA, of the Nets, of Nike, of his boxer brief company. You know, there's a business thing going on here too. And to be able to actually walk through life and not have any of those things matter, opinions matter, perception matter, is a lot harder done than said.
Well, and I agree with you, but there's also a bit of, how is he as a father? How is he as a human being, right? How does he play on the court, right? Like, yes, there are perceptions that you have to kind of, get rid of, but he's never been in trouble in his life. He's never had an issue. We've never seen any extracurricular stuff with him. So it's like, if the worst thing that comes with this player is he's a bit moody or he goes through some things, I'm taking it, 100 times. It doesn't mean that Kyrie can't improve and then he can't work on getting better, but he's like, one thing that everyone here knows, if you're constantly searching for everyone's validation and you want everyone to like you, that is a bad place to be.
And we've been critical of Kevin Durant on the other end of the spectrum for that. I mean, I'll be honest, of all the different things Kyrie has said and done in public, I thought him taking the flat earth thing to the extent that he did, not just saying it at first
You're
with
welcome.
you. Yes, thank you. That's Richard who evoked that from him. But taking it as far as it did, because there's a point where you had actual kids sort of going to their science teachers and that kind of thing. I don't mind him being moody, and I'm curious to get your opinion, Richard, because you experienced with him during a playoff run, I think during an NBA Finals run, right?
Yes.
Where he went a few days without talking to any of you guys. And it felt like at the time, because he hadn't done something to that extreme before, there was a lot of guys feeling like, well, what's his static? What's going on? Do we have a problem here? I think people know Kyrie well enough now. If that happened now, I think in the same exact situation, people would just, on your team, would have brushed it off and been like, yeah, Kyrie's done it before, I'll do it again.
Yeah, and look, there were things that weren't great about it, but at the end of the day, we never questioned, was he going to show up on the court, right? Dennis Rodman said here on this exact same stage and said he'd never talked to Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, and they are arguably the greatest team of any decade ever. So you don't have to be best friends, and so a lot of us, it was out of concern, like, is Kyrie okay? And he becomes a bit of an introvert, right, in those moments. And like he said in Boston, his grandfather had passed away and he became an introvert, and he struggled with that. That's okay to struggle with that, and how everyone deals with it is very, very different. So I'm not going to be critical of Kyrie because he all of a sudden didn't show up. Now, look, he didn't play great in Boston in the second round. That's fine, right? So you can be critical of his play, but ultimately, if that's how he wants to handle things and that's how he wants to go about it, as long as you're not getting in trouble, as long as you're not causing any problems and you're a good person, which he is, you just have to accept him for him.
Like, I'm not so naive to think that in the limited media interactions that we have with these players, that I actually get a full sense of who these players are. But this is one example. My first season covering him, I felt like I got to see a little bit behind the curtain. I had played basketball with his father that summer leading into the season at a fantasy basketball camp in Vegas, and I had a brief conversation with Kyrie, and I was like, it's cool that I played with Dredd and he's still playing, and that you guys share this love of the game. And he's able to pass it on to his son. And Kyrie said, yeah, I love the game. And I said, like, man, it must be great for you. You get to, like, do this thing you get to love, that you love every day, right? And he's like, well, no, I love it, and I love playing when I want to play it.
Yeah.
But I have to play in this scenario. So I got to see a little bit of, like, the weight of the situation that he's in. And it's a little shred of humanity.
Well, and one thing that Kyrie also said, though, he said that when he's done playing basketball, he might disappear.
Yeah.
Like he's like, dude, I'm here and this is a part of it, but when I'm done, like I'm not going to continue putting myself out there. So sometimes all of this isn't for everyone.
When you make that kind of money, you can go do whatever you like after your professional career. I do want to get, though, to the effect on the Nets, because last night's game, Nets coach Kenny Atkinson was asked about their offensive issues. Take a listen to what he said.
Yeah, we're not really running anything. It kind of, in training camp, you're practicing a lot, and you have nice flow. You kind of know what you're doing. I think we've kind of lost a little bit of our structure and organization, which is natural with the new team, with new guys. I think, like I said, I think we got to play with each other more, get to know each other more, get on the same page on all aspects.
Richard, can you do the inside, outside the locker room translation? What is he actually saying here?
We have to continue playing together, right? And what he said is very accurate. What he said is this. One of the things, I watched the game last night, they don't have a real backup point guard. Right now they have Spencer Dinwiddie, they have Karis LeVert, and even in the first couple of games this year, Kyrie came out on fire. He would go out the game and then the lead would go down. And that was one of my observations. Like even when Kyrie scored that 50-point game in a loss, if you watch the game, his plus minus was very, very good, is when he would leave the game. And it's because they have guys playing out of position. No traditional backup point guard. So it starts to become a little, my turn, your turn. They got Spencer Dinwiddie playing out of position. And so that's something that they might have to address as the season progresses. This is not something that you would put on Kyrie. Because if you look at his plus minus and how he gets guys involved, no turnovers, he's playing good basketball and their team is talented, but I think they're missing some things, internally.
I'm just curious, why would he be so vague about it, though? Because the way he said that, he left it open for interpretation for us to say, well, then he must be talking about Kyrie because he's the guy with the ball in his hands all the time. And if they're not being organized or structured, Kyrie's the one controlling that.
But a lot of the times it's the second unit. Like I said, in watching those first two games, Kyrie they were tied. Kyrie go out of the game. They're down 8. Kyrie comes back. They were tied. Every point that Kyrie scored in that 50-point game was needed. Karl-Anthony Towns was balling. He had to hit every one of those shots. You don't want to call out your players at this point in time. No one's being selfish. You just have guys that are playing out of position like Spencer Dinwiddie or Karis LeVert playing your backup point guard. That's not their natural position, and they could struggle in the beginning.
All right, up next, we're going to talk about Kawhi because he is playing the Spurs tonight in San Antonio. We will discuss our expectations for that. Is it a revenge game? Oh, it's in L.A., producer Steve says in my ear.
It's here, yeah.
It's here, so I don't know who's having revenge on who. But first, we will look at our second distant replay of the day. This one is from Rudy Gay on this date.
In 08.
2008.
Grizzlies don't have a timeout. Rudy for the win!
Yeah! Ooh!
One of the prettiest jumpers, boy.
Woo.
That guy loves it.
Is that Jameer Nelson? Is that Keith Bogans?
Ray for Alston.
Is that Keith Bogans getting lit up again? Who's that?
Richard.
That's Bogans.
He's
Bogan's a bum. Tell him I said that.
Man.